I was 60 years old when I learned that grief makes you vulnerable, but it doesn't have to make you weak. My name is Margaret Chen, and this is the story of how I reclaimed everything they tried to take from me. Thomas died on a Tuesday, 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days ago. I remember because Tuesdays were our day, the day we'd met 42 years earlier at that little bookshop on Harrison Street. When his heart stopped in our bedroom, surrounded by the morning light filtering through curtains we'd chosen together, something in me stopped too. But not everything. The funeral was beautiful. His family, our asterisk family, I thought then gathered around me with tissues and tight smiles. His brother Richard squeezed my shoulder. His sister Patricia brought casseroles. They spoke in hushed, reverent tones about Thomas, about legacy, about taking care of things. I should have seen it coming. The first attack came 3 months after we buried him. Richard arrived unannounced, his wife Linda in tow, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. "Margaret, we need to talk about the house," Richard said, settling into Thomas's favorite chair without asking. The house, our house, the one Thomas and I had designed together, saved for, built from the ground up on that plot of land we'd found outside the city. Every beam, every window, every garden stone, we'd chosen it all together. "What about it?" I asked, though my stomach already knew. "Well, it's so much house for one person, and Thomas would have wanted family to benefit from his estate. We've been thinking." "The house is mine," I interrupted quietly. Linda leaned forward, her voice syrupy. "Of course, dear, but legally there are considerations. Thomas's portion of the inheritance." I stood up. "Thomas left everything to me. The will is clear." Richard's face hardened. "We'll see about that." And so it began. They contested the will, claiming Thomas had been unduly influenced in his final years. They suggested I'd manipulated him, isolated him from his family. They conveniently forgot every Sunday dinner, every holiday gathering I'd hosted, every time I'd driven Thomas's aging mother to her appointments. Patricia stopped calling except through her lawyer. Richard spread whispers at the country club Thomas and I had belonged to for decades. They painted me as a gold digger, me, who had worked as a nurse for 35 years, who had helped Thomas build his consulting business from our kitchen table. The legal bills mounted. They had money, old money, family money. I had our savings and my pension. Every month I watched our nest egg shrink, funding a battle over a house that was already mine. Some nights I sat in our bedroom and wept. I imagined selling, walking away, letting them win. The house felt too big without Thomas, too full of echoes. But then I'd remember his hands, rough and capable, installing the kitchen cabinets. I'd remember us, paint splattered and laughing, rolling color onto the bedroom walls. I'd remember the garden we'd planted, watching it grow from bare dirt to the explosion of roses and lavender that now surrounded the property. They could break me, I thought, but they never will. I fired my first lawyer, too timid, too willing to settle. I found Margaret Okonkwo, a woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. She was expensive, but she was worth it. "They're banking on you giving up," Margaret O told me. "Don't." I didn't. I organized every document, every bank statement, every receipt, every letter Thomas had ever written me, including the one he'd written a month before he died, expressing his wishes clearly. I found witnesses, our architect, our contractor, neighbors who'd watched us build our dream. I gathered evidence of my contributions, my name on the mortgage, my salary payments, my sweat and blood in every corner of that house. The depositions were brutal. Richard's lawyer tried to paint me as calculating, cold. Patricia cried on the stand, talking about her dear brother and his confused final years. But I had truth on my side. And I had rage, not the hot, destructive kind, but the cold, focused fury of a woman who'd been underestimated her entire life. The judge ruled in my favor, completely. The will stood. The house was mine, unequivocally mine. The judge even ordered them to pay my legal fees, citing their frivolous claims. Richard's face, when the verdict came down, was almost worth the hell he'd put me through. Almost. But I wasn't done. I sold the country club membership Thomas and I had shared, the one where Richard had spread his poison. I sent the letter of resignation directly to Richard's golf buddy. I remodeled the guest room that Patricia had always claimed she wanted. I painted it in colors she hated. I hosted a garden party and invited everyone except Thomas's siblings. I invited our real friends, the ones who'd stood by me. I invited Margaret O and her wife. We drank champagne on the deck Thomas had built, surrounded by flowers we'd planted together. And I lived. I took art classes. I traveled, something Thomas and I had planned but always postponed. I turned his office into a studio and learned to paint. I filled the house with life and noise and joy. Some people think revenge is about destruction, but my revenge was simpler. I thrived. I'm 62 now. The house is fuller than it's ever been, with friends, with laughter, with purpose. I volunteer at the hospital where I used to work. I mentor young nurses. I tend my garden. Richard and Patricia don't speak to me. I don't care. They thought they could break me with grief and greed. They thought a widow at 60 would be easy prey. They were wrong. I am Margaret Chen. I am Thomas's wife, his partner, his equal in all things. I built this life, this house, this legacy. They can break me, but they never will. Because I'm still standing.